Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Business Over Brew podcast. My name is Ellie. I will be your host for today. And joining me in the studio, I have Will and Galen with Justine Peterson. Boys, welcome to the studio.
Thanks.
How are you guys doing?
Here. I'm doing really good.
Good. I mean, minus your fall.
Yeah, I had a slip.
The other day.
Major league slip. I was hitting somebody, tagging somebody.
That's no joke.
And didn't plan on it.
That is no joke.
Well, hopefully all the ice will melt away by the end of today, right?
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, okay. Seriously, it is nicer today. I would say. Yeah, but I feel like there's still little black ice pieces.
Yeah.
Places. So I don't know. You did find one. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you both for taking time out of your busy schedules, busy week to sit down with me this morning / afternoon, I guess, since it's just about 11 o'clock. But I would just love to learn about Justine Peterson, the mission behind it, what you really stand for. And then, of course, I would love to hear about your roles.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I'll start it off. I'd say Galen had a much longer history with Justine Peterson, and I encountered Galen and Rob Boyle, who was the founder of Justine Peterson, probably about 14 years ago. Okay. Working in community development and fair housing in St. Louis, and we were part of a coalition working together. Making investment from banks work for the community, where banks are not able to put the kind of money and investment in the community that they need to in order to bridge the gap from so many years of disinvestment in our communities. And Justine Peterson can and did and still is doing that kind of work. And so that's where I met them out on the battlefield, and they were probably our most significant partner in that work. Yeah.
Yeah, Ellie, Justine Peterson actually furthers the legacy of Justine M. Peterson, who is indeed a progenitor and pioneer of access primarily to home ownership for families that were challenged, disadvantaged, with an emphasis actually on female-headed households. She began her work with an organization called Acorn quite some time ago. Our founder, Rob Boyle, met Justine during that period of time. Justine unfortunately passed from a heart attack too early in life. This organization, Justine Peterson, was christened with her namesake, and we're essentially a hybrid of social work and banking. Justine was very much a social worker, and this idea that the hybrid of banking can be a mashup, it can be a collision, but it can also be quite harmonious. On two occasions, actually, in the 80s, Justine was recognized by the Missouri Association of Social Welfare as Social Worker of the Year. And she very much, spearheaded this idea that banks can invest in neighborhoods that are quote unquote challenged, disadvantaged, and there can be a return on investment. That it doesn't need to be charity, so to speak. And Justine can be credited. I think we can publicly say that Justine truly was one of the first individuals to partner with banks and help broker what we call like progressive mortgage products to make sure that the American dream could be within reach for any and all.
Absolutely.
How interesting.
Yes.
She seems amazing.
Yes.
Brilliant.
A legacy has expanded and is moving on through Justine Peterson, the organization, in so many ways. And that's why I'm a part of it today, because it is probably, Justine Peterson represents probably the most significant work that is happening from a community development financial institution. Galen will talk about what that is, a CDFI, but they have a significant role to play in bridging the gap in communities when it comes to equity and finance. Roles that banks had not traditionally played, and so they're not set up to do the type of work that Justine Peterson is set up to do. Yeah, so it's an important service provider that without them, there would be so much less opportunity for disadvantaged persons and people who have been left behind by the banking institution.
Absolutely. And then what were both of what is your role, Will, at Justine Peterson?
So I am the community investment manager, and what I do is I work with banks, I sit down with software, and I look at banks' CRA performance, and I publish reports on them both internally for our partnerships to kind of see where banks are, what kind of penetration they have in low income and minority markets, and what kind of things we think that we offer that can make them do better when it comes to community development.
Right.
And to find those partnerships in the community, as well as working with small businesses, home ownership cohorts, and kind of educating them about redlining, about the things of the past and how we can avoid those things as we move forward, but how important home ownership and business ownership is to their wealth and their prosperity for the future, to bring them out of the incomes and out of the disparities that they have been in. Without home ownership, without business ownership, it's not likely that they'll turn the tide. And so we want to help them to do that.
That makes so much sense.
Ellie, I'm going to follow up on Will and say, Will, you referenced CRA. Can you tell us more? What is CRA?
Oh, absolutely, Galen. CRA is the Community Reinvestment Act, and it is literally a law that was passed by Congress in order to make certain that when banks are taking deposits from communities, that they're not basically accumulating those deposits and making them only available to people who are wealthy, but yet taking them from people who are not so wealthy.
Right.
So it's about equity in the way that you distribute those funds and those services in those communities, so that you cannot lend yourself to a situation that has basically redlined out people who are living in inner cities out of opportunity. To actually reverse that trend, it takes some positive investment in communities, and that's what the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Act, does. And certainly that is what Justine Peterson, the woman, was doing when she was here on this earth, and we have received that legacy, and that is how I partnered with Justine Peterson before coming there, and now I am a part of Justine Peterson continuing that work.
Well, that was comprehensive. I'm impressed. Good work on that. I was with Justine Peterson, past tense, so to speak. Maybe not past tense, for 21 years, but I transitioned at that point this was 2 years ago, to the board of directors of Great Rivers Community Capital, which is a subsidiary community development financial institution, which sounds like a lot of jargon, and I'll speak more to that in a little bit. But recently, at the first of the year here, I'm now president of the board for Great Rivers Community Capital. So I wear a couple different hats as it's as it relates to my association with Justine Peterson. Right. And one of those maybe includes court jester. I'm not sure. But let me mention this, or talk a little bit about something, this entity that is a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution. Great Rivers Community Capital is one of the CDFIs of Justine Peterson. Justine Peterson also has a CDFI that's truly Justine Peterson Housing and Reinvestment Corporation. And what is a CDFI? What do they do? Well, it's this whole concept of making capital available, safe and affordable capital, and creating access. In fact, Ellie, what we're here today to talk about is opportunity. If anything, I want people to, after they hear the Will and Galen show, they're like, yeah, those two guys were talking about opportunity when they met with Ellie, and that's what it really is. It's about opportunity. And it's actually not about competition with mainstream finance or banks. It's about partnering and creating a port of entry. And so a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution, is all about trying to create an opportunity for someone who maybe can't access capital from a mainstream lender at the moment. So what does that look like? Well, that means that if you're a small business person and you're not in a position to borrow money for your business, you could potentially approach a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution, borrow money, and then graduate back to mainstream finance. So again, it's about a partnership. It's about this idea of teaming. In fact, most of the capital that we lend to small businesses come from bank investments. Yes. And Will just talked about CRA, the Community Reinvestment Act, which is one reason that banks invest with us. I don't want to say it's the only reason, but it is a motivator to make that capital available. And then we redeploy that to individuals, small businesses that aren't in a position to borrow. Now, the other thing is that I want to make sure that when we're talking today about financial access, we're also talking about credit scores. And it's not just about money today. It's about opportunity with your credit score and building your credit. And the other thing that you should hear from the Will and Galen show today is that they talked about opportunity, but we also talked about this fundamental asset called a credit score. So it doesn't matter if you have any tangible assets. I don't care if you're a homeowner. I don't care if you're a business owner. You are a person who has the possibility and the potential to optimize your credit score with very little investment. In fact, credit scores are really about paying bills on time, which means your income. And again, I've struggled with people to explain to them that someone will say, I don't make enough money to have a high credit score. There's no such thing, actually. All of us at any income level can actually have a high credit score, can have the same credit score for that matter. So I'm not saying credit scoring is perfect. In fact, I think there are salient flaws to it. That said, is it actually an opportunity for everyone? It is, to be quite honest. Even though the metrics, even though the calculus may not be ideal, I want to argue that all of us can be equipped with the tools to optimize a credit score.
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing that Justine Peterson does on a day-to-day basis is to help people understand the language of credit. That is so important because it's not based on common sense. Because in common sense, you think, hey, I want to pay off all my debts and owe no one. Hey, wait a minute. When it comes to credit, in order for them to understand how you spend and your responsibility, you must have open trade lines. That is a credit card or something that you are revolving paying on so that we can see the history of you borrowing and paying it back. So having a low balance is more important, but closing a card is not so good. And so I used to, my father would always teach me to be a person of no debt, try to have no debt. And my father spent his life buying things in cash and closing accounts, right? Credit is trash. Why? He closed the accounts. You would think he has no debt. That guy's got to be the top of the list. Absolutely not. Because it's not about whether or not you have access to cash. It's about whether or not you are trustworthy in the trade. Right. And that's what the credit is scoring. How trustworthy are you in borrowing and paying back? Where if you don't have a record, then you don't have credit. Even though you may have cash. And so the thing that I learned coming up about not having debt, that is okay. But the problem is, if you don't understand how credit works, then you don't have a legacy to pass on. So my dad didn't pass on a legacy of a good credit history with a credit card that he could put me on with a long payment history. I wanted that badly.
Do you both feel that is not general knowledge so far, what we have been discussing?
It is not general knowledge. It is literally one of the missions of Justine Peterson is to expose the way credit works, because no matter what your income level, if you are exposed at a young age to the way credit works, you have an advantage, such a great advantage.
100%.
Yes.
100%. Are there any steps that you guys have started taking or have been taking to spread this message, to educate people and say, this is really important information that you need to know?
Absolutely.
What steps have you guys taken?
Of course. One thing I want to touch on here as it relates to taking steps is that someone may say, well, wait a minute. I'm not a homeowner, so interest rates don't really, how do they factor into my life? Why should I take any step in any direction to build my credit? And I'm going to ask them, do you drive a car? And they're going to say yes. I hope they take mass transit as well, but they're going to probably say they drive a car. And then I'm going to say, do you have a car note? And some are going to say, no, my car's paid off, and that's fine. But they're still going to have car insurance. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. But for those with the car note, and then for all of us with car insurance, both are tethered to credit scores, which means credit score goes up, car note interest rate can potentially go down. Credit score goes up, monthly premium or 6-month premium on car insurance can go down. So the Will and Galen show also says, hey, everybody out there who's driving a car, whether you have a car note or not, you have car insurance. And I'm going to tell you that credit scores play a role in the algorithm of factoring how much you have to pay for that. So even if you say, hey, credit scores don't matter to me, I don't have anything that's impacted by credit scores, if you're driving a car, they do. If you're driving a car legally, that is, with insurance, then you should have. But in terms of steps, today is the perfect example, right? It's about awareness. It's about getting out into the community. It's talking in front of church groups, faith-based groups, neighborhood associations, media opportunities like this. but talking to your neighbor. And in fact, going back to this notion of how Justine, the person, really created a network of meeting with families. When Justine, essentially talked to people about home ownership, it just wasn't mom or dad. Or a single mom or a single dad, but the family. Invited the kids to come in. There could be a playroom in the corner, or if the young adolescent daughter or son wanted to sit in and listen, they could. And this idea of familial asset building, right? Will referenced generational, kind of intergenerational wealth building, and it needs to start somewhere. Okay, and that's a perfect example. So I know Tupperware just declared bankruptcy, so it's probably I have to think about not using the Tupperware analogy any longer. But I still like the notion of the Tupperware party, which some of us in the room might be too young to know what it is. But people gather in the living room, family room, and sell one another Tupperware, talk about the benefits of Tupperware. Well, guess what? I mean, how we talk about credit is very similar.
Okay.
That is, let's get in the family room, let's invite neighbors, maybe let's meet under the shade tree, have a barbecue. But it's about getting the word out and understanding that a high credit score is within reach for everyone.
Absolutely.
Which I appreciated you, Ellie, saying, hey, I don't think this is general knowledge. You're exactly right. It's not general knowledge.
Absolutely.
And why do you think that is?
The education system is not really designed to give people freedom economically or wealth.
Right.
It's really designed to have people to plug in as a cog in the wheel of a system, to be a worker, but not necessarily to be the runner of that machine.
Right.
And so if you want to run the machine, be a homeowner, be a business owner, have wealth, have good credit, then you have to be educated in the same way that the people who ran the machine are educated. And that is not going to happen through public education. And I'm just going to be honest with you. It's just not. You can go through a 4-year college and not really learn much about credit. But I tell you what, if you come to Justine Peterson, you're going to get a world of knowledge. You're going to wish you had came here before you went to school.
Yeah, seriously.
No, point well taken. In fact, consumer education, both in Illinois and Missouri, for the longest time, did not even reference really credit scores and their significance. And I'm certainly from a generation, well, it didn't even exist for a while, that is the credit score model, but it certainly wasn't talked about in terms of consumer education. The other thing is that I think there's this general phobia, if you will, that something like a credit score must inherently be for those with money or have money, and that there's a price tag to it. And what's really interesting is that I've heard that across the socioeconomic spectrum. That is, that even those who are affluent assumed their affluence played some role in their credit score. And then the converse of that is those who actually may have really stringent household budgets feel like there's no chance. So again, it sounds pretty dramatic, but the Will and Galen show is a message of hope. Okay, it's a message of hope and opportunity and access.
Yes, it is.
100%. And you talked about, you just mentioned a second ago that, hey, if you stop into Justine Peterson, like, we're going to educate you, you're going to walk out, knowing all this information. But what other resources or services or tools does Justine Peterson offer?
So a lot of people come to Justine Peterson because they heard from a friend about maybe they got a loan to start a daycare, right? Or they may got a loan to get a house, or they did education to learn about home buying and found out about down payment assistance that they never knew even existed. And so it's word of mouth, because Justine Peterson doesn't deploy marketing money to the streets to tell people about it. We deploy money to the streets to give to people and educate them about credit to make their lives change. And the people are the voice of what we do. And so it's that word of mouth, and businesses come to Justine Peterson. Every time I go to a SCORE event or whatnot, and I tell them I'm with Justine Peterson, more people come to me to tell me about experiences that they or their family members had with Justine Peterson than I ever would have known if I didn't open my mouth and say who I was with. In fact, my pastor at my church, which is Refuge and Restoration Church, got his first home loan from Justine Peterson. And he tells this story, and he's even given us permission to share the story.
Okay.
That he was skeptical about, really, he hadn't been a homeowner up until then. And he was very successful as in corporate America. and got a good paying job and whatnot, but never really saw himself as a homeowner. And his wife, Beverly, who is also the pastor of the church, she encouraged him, hey, let's go and talk to Justine Peterson, because she had heard from word of mouth this was a place we could go. So he walks into the office and to meet with Rob Boyle and his brother, and to talk about getting a house. And it's brand new for Rob Boyle and his brother, and it's brand new for my pastors. And when it's all said and done, one of the first home products that was given in the city was given to my pastor, and it was brand new for Justine Peterson and brand new for him. And he is still in that house to this day. He was able to get a product where they set aside money on a monthly basis for being able to do home repairs, and he was able to tap into that years and years later because that account was still there and that money was still there. And he's always talked about the benefit of going through Justine Peterson because it made a difference in his longevity in that space. So that word of mouth, that when people come to Justine Peterson, somebody else told them to go to Justine Peterson. That's and how we get
and you
business.
both have such rewarding, you're in very unique positions because the work you do is extremely rewarding.
Yes.
Is that a moment where you thought to yourself, the work I'm doing is really impactful and I can see it clear as day in front of me?
And I'll let Galen speak for himself because he's always been a very positive person, whether he's with Justine Peterson or not, and so have I. But Justine Peterson reflects and it amplifies our energy because of the opportunity. Now, it's not easy when you're bridging a gap between in a system where you have so many things against you when you walk in the door because you didn't have that knowledge, because you didn't have that opportunity, because you weren't handed an inheritance from a family. This might be your first opportunity for a house, or the first time you're making a business decision and a business plan. But because Justine Peterson has the knowledge of so many people who have had a first, that we can take that cumulative knowledge and make you go past your own capabilities, because we'll give you the benefit of somebody else's knowledge. And so that's the hope of Justine Peterson, because it's not easy. Many people who come to Justine Peterson, it's work when they want to get this loan. It's work because you're looking at alternative ways to see how you're going to be credited for being able to make the payments on time. So that means we got to ask more questions. If you go to a bank, there's going to be fewer questions, and you're probably just going to get a no. If you come to Justine Peterson, there's going to be a lot of questions, and you're going to be sweating. But you're probably going to get a yes. But you're going to sweat because you're going to put in some time to understand that what's happening with you, what's happening with your family, the patterns and all these things. They're going to have to change in order for you to come from this to mainline financing, and that's what our goal is. So we're not just trying to get you into a product like Guido and those guys at the corner and the payday loans. We're trying to get you into something that's going to change your life, and it's got to be something that's paired with education. So it's not an easy process to come and put in an application for a loan at Justine Peterson. But I promise you, the people who have told us that they want you to go down to Justine Peterson and get it is because they realize it made them a better person. But you're going to put in some work.
Absolutely. And to quickly touch on that before Galen over here takes the strains, but I want to mention that those that do choose to do the work, that choose to walk in the doors, I applaud. It takes, I can't imagine the type of courage and bravery it would take to have that self-reflection of, hey, I need help, and I'm going to go ask for help. Because in any type of situation, asking for help can be extremely nerve-wracking and scary. So I did want to mention that to all of those. Wow, I applaud you.
That's right.
It takes a lot of strength.
Coming to Justine Peterson is almost like coming to church. Let me tell you why. Because one of the things that happens when you go to church is somebody else is going to get in your business. You might not even tell them, but the pastor's going to say, the Lord told me. And you're going to say, who told you about me? Hey, did you tell them about me? No, the Lord said it. Well, the same thing about Justine Peterson, because when you get on that credit scale, it's going to tell the truth on your life. No, I'm serious. So when you come there, when you don't want somebody in your business, don't go to church and don't go to Justine Peterson. Because in order for you to make that transition, you're going to have to let somebody else in on some habits and some things that you have done that just might not be pretty.
Right.
But if you make that turn, your life will go in the direction of wealth and freedom. The same thing you want when you went to church is the same thing you want when you go to Justine Peterson.
Right.
That does embody so much of this notion that we talk about, the hybrid of social work and banking.
Yes.
And that is inserting humanity. Not that banking writ large is devoid of humanity. I'm not stating that.
Right.
But this idea that we need to personify what we're doing. That said, money alone is not the answer. And I appreciate Will talking about the fact that a financial product needs to be partnered or needs to be paired with education.
Yes.
And I want to make it very clear that it's a serious endeavor, especially to be involved in a loan transaction. And because of that, we all need to kind of take it up a notch on our teamwork and partnership on getting to the same place together. And that is borrowing money is one thing. Paying it back is another. And paying it back on time builds the credit score. So in fact, let me just state this. Justine Peterson would be counterproductive if, in fact, money is lent and not paid back on time, and then a credit score actually falls. Okay, and so it's not money alone. It's about the responsibility of not only lending responsibly from a Justine Peterson perspective. There's a lot of P's there, but paying back also responsibly. The other one thing I want to mention, because Ellie talked about products and services.
Right.
This may sound like somewhat of a radical notion, but I also want to leave this with people today. And they'll remember that on the Will and Galen show, they talked about this. There's this theme of opportunity, and we've talked primarily about lending money or loans. But believe it or not, and this is it could sound like completely counterintuitive to what we were thinking we'd talk about today, but if you had a credit card and you only... Everybody spends money, don't they? I think they do.
Yeah.
So here's what I would say. One way to build your credit is to have a credit card. You can actually have a secured credit card. Pretty much anyone can. I can't say everybody can get a secured credit card, but almost everybody can get a secured credit card. It means you put money down for it. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, if you spend money, which you do, you buy gas or groceries. In fact, I ask people, do you eat? And if you eat... And if you eat once a month, I'm only asking you to eat once a month.
Okay.
That one time that you buy groceries, I'm being facetious when I say that, obviously. Instead of paying with cash, you'd pay with your credit card.
Yeah.
And then you'd pay your credit card off that month, which means there'd be no interest accrued.
Right.
I'm not asking you to buy anything more than what you do. And quickly, that's my big proclamation this morning, and that is what happens is that the abuse of credit and the abuse of credit cards, when in fact a credit card could be a tool for building your credit score and using it for expenses that you already incur, which means I'm telling you, you can't buy an extra pair of shoes. No.
Right.
You can't buy X, Y, and Z that you didn't have beforehand. I'm merely asking you to change your method of payment on one act of consumption monthly, perhaps, and you could build your credit score.
Right. Do you feel that, I don't think the correct word is a stigma around having a credit card?
Oh, I think stigma is a really good word,
Because I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm thinking to myself, maybe if I didn't have the education behind the types of things we're discussing right now in terms of credit card and credit scores, those that don't have a credit card, are they comfortable in their own traditional ways because that's what they have always known, and switching forms of payment might be scary?
I fully understand that. Not to mention, it would be, reckless of me not to talk about the temptation, right? To use that credit card.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, I want to be utterly transparent in this discussion and know that it comes with inherent risk. But to your point, Ellie, it also comes with this idea of change and something foreign, and how, and just understanding the ground rules.
Yes. Because I can tell you, when you walk into a dealership and you put in the work, and you walk in there and maybe you've even set up your own financing, and they have an advertised price on the internet, and you say, I want that car for that price, and I've got my own financing, and you walk out and your credit doesn't even take a hit because you don't even ask for them to shop around.
Right.
And you get the price that was advertised on the internet and no frills, right? That feels good. But that only happens with knowledge.
Right.
Because if you walk into the dealership and you don't know that, they're going to help you a lot. They're going to also help themselves to shop in your credit.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to also potentially put on all types of other warranties and whatnot, and you're going to walk out of there. You're going to be hopeful when you walk in, but when you leave, you're going to have some buyer's remorse. Right? So you need to have some education and some knowledge before you walk in there. And it's not just about a car that you like, that you feel like, because no matter where you are economically, you can still get a better deal with knowledge when you walk in there. And that's the kind of information that Justine Peterson shares with its clientele about what's the best way to walk into there, because you're going to get a car. Right. And you could get a car, a better car, or a more reliable vehicle that costs less money if you do it smartly. If you do it smartly. And credit's going to play a role in that.
Right. And if there is somebody out there that's listening or watching this this podcast episode, what do they need to know or have a grasp of before they walk through the doors?
Don't do this alone. Don't do this alone. Don't take your pride out of the equation.
Okay.
That's the way life should be. You have to take your pride out of the equation and understand that there is another way to get things done.
Right.
And talking to someone who has done it before, who has a track history, and lots of stories of good and bad that you can learn from before you make that decision is really a good idea. And that's life. That's any person in life. Don't try to do this alone. And Justine Peterson walks alongside of people if you want to walk alongside of Justine Peterson.
Right.
Yeah.
No, well put, well articulated, Will. I want to also extend that to this notion of you should think about a buddy. So not only would there be somebody on, not only would this exchange be someone on the Justine Peterson side working with you, but what about not coming in alone to do it? And what do I mean by that? That means maybe both of you doing a credit, when I say both of you, two people, your buddy, and whoever that buddy is. We've talked in the past about a significant financial other, okay? And you could view them as perhaps even reimagining the cosigner bit. Let's say you both do a credit builder loan. Together you borrow $500 and you pay that back, and both of you realize your credit score rising. So I really appreciate Will bringing up this idea of not doing it, that you can't do it alone. That is, you'd be doing it with someone at Justine Peterson, but you can also come in not alone and think about already kind of spreading the responsibility and the risk per se with someone else.
Yes, absolutely. So,
or sharing it rather, not spreading it. I'll say share.
Because what happens in the communities that are left behind, especially in African American communities, is that we have gotten used to wanting to do things alone. There's this stigma of, I don't want anybody in my business. I don't want to share much. I don't want anybody to use it against you. Well, if you're already at zero, who cares how they're going to use it against you? Because we're trying to go up. In order for you to go up, you're going to have to share something, and you want to share with someone who also wants to go up or is moving up and is willing to see the effort that you're putting into it is matching their energy and go up. But you can't do it alone. And to the extent that we learn how cooperative, family, group economics, these things, these principles, if they're not working for you now in your community, well, at no point in time will you be successful without learning how to do that. Even if it's just a small number of people, but you must not do it alone.
Wow. I'm learning, I genuinely am learning a lot just sitting here and listening to what you both have to say.
Yes.
It's,
That's precisely why trust is always the first thing that the enemy will use to try to get you to try to do things alone.
Right.
Oh, remember they betrayed you. So amplifying that so that you can do it alone so that he can clean your clock. Don't go. Who would show up at a fight alone if you know the other people had 10 and you were just 1? Nobody does that. If you're going to go to it, you better take 11.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good line. Oh, man. Is there anything going on in the new year with Justine Peterson that we should be aware of, or those listening or tuning in are able to support in some way?
Yes, absolutely.
What's going on?
So we have a couple of cohorts going right now.
Okay.
One is a home buyer cohort that we're going to start another one in April.
Okay.
We're working with U.S. Bank, and we have those at NCIC. So Justine Peterson started a outreach office at the North County Innovation Center of R&R Marketplace on West Florissant in Delwood, Missouri.
Gotcha.
We have an office in that building. It's called the North County Innovation Center. It's a state-of-the-art facility for small businesses and co-working spaces. And we are located in there to partner with those small businesses as well as the R&R Marketplace and all of its partners. And we have a home buyer cohort that's going to start for persons who are looking to buy a home in the metropolitan area, either side of the river. But we're going to be meeting over there. It's a program with Justine Peterson and R&R Refuge and Restoration Church and U.S. Bank. We're all partnering together. We have a cohort that's finishing up right now, where there's about 15 people going through classes, and they've gotten pre-qualified to buy houses. And a couple of them are already closed on those homes. Wow! And so they get $100 a month in towards their closing costs for every class that they attend, and we meet every month. So that's one thing that's going on. We also have a small business cohort that is happening in North County as well, and in that cohort, we talk about what resources can be brought to bear from banks, whether it be products and services specialized for small businesses. Also what Justine Peterson's products and services are with the SBA loans, that's the Small Business Administration, and what kind of loans that you qualify for from them, that Justine Peterson actually syndicates those loans for persons. So we expose them to Justine Peterson's loan products and credit building services. And we also talk about what kind of things that banks can give to those small businesses. And we meet on a monthly basis as well. And that group has learned about Community Reinvestment Act and those types of things. So we have ranked the banks that are doing the most in the underserved communities, and we're going to be releasing a report sometime in March about those banks that are at the top of that list, and we're going to invite those banks out to come and share their success stories with those business owners.
Wow.
Yeah.
That seems awesome.
It's about 42 banks on there, and the ones who are really outstanding are about the top 12. And we're going to invite everybody out, but we know those top 12 are going to show up because they're looking good.
Right, of course, of course.
Yeah, I would say this. I think in 2025, each and every one of us should think about putting our credit score front and center. And why do I say that? Because you have control of that. We may or may not have control of the inflationary economy. We may or may not have control of interest rates. Okay, actually, both of those we don't have control of, to be quite honest. What we do have control of is our personal credit score. Right. And so I do think as we navigate our way in to 2025, how can we be the most resilient and robust? Well, we can, have the most stellar credit score.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I did kind of have a final question, as we're thinking about wrapping up the episode, is how do volunteers and donors play into Justine Peterson?
Oh, what a great question you've asked here today. Galen, I'm so excited about the knowledge that we have here with our interviewer that I'm excited because that is exactly one of the most important things that we're doing today, is that we're trying to get the word out to people who are looking to see. They already want to make a change. But what's the best bang for my buck? Do I just find some guy on the street and try to invest in his business?
Right.
Or do I look at someone like Justine Peterson, who has a proven record of working with not just individuals, but groups of individuals, and walking with them for a long period of time to where they are not just ready for an investment, but they're going to be ready for mainline financing.
Right.
So we're looking at the long-term value of an individual. And so when you invest in JP, you have an opportunity to let your money walk with someone, so that the return, both for you as an investor and the return for the individual who is receiving the funding, is got a bridge, a gap, where we're looking at where you were and where you're going. And then when you pay that money back, that fund is going towards someone else to do the same thing. So that's one thing you got to understand about Justine Peterson, is that when a person invests, they're putting money into a fund that, because we're investing in that person to show them how to pay the money back and make sure they're ready to do so, when they pay it back, now that money's going to revolve back into the next person. Who we're also going to invest in. Yes. So that's what's important. So, and if you go on our website, justinepeterson.org, you'll see an opportunity where investors can come and they can click on that and see how our programs are working, see what our track record is, and give us a call. And give us a call.
I looked. I saw. I looked at the website.
CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, offer the opportunity for investors to make a social impact investment. Right? And what that means is, as much as they also could potentially grant money, if in fact they want to truly make an investment, that money can come back and they can earn a rate of return. And what that means is that they've invested in an organization, a CDFI, that then redeploys that capital to individuals and small businesses in need, who then pay that money back, and then the investor is paid back. So it's this idea of how you make a quote-unquote social impact investment and realize tangible results in a community, and then also earn a rate of return.
Absolutely. Years ago, there was a showing in a Pagedale for a movie called Poverty, Inc. And it was significant in that movie talked about the difference between international efforts to stabilize countries that were going through poverty, the difference between just dropping off bags of wheat versus teaching them how to farm and start businesses and cooperative economics, buying and selling to and from one another. That the latter is the only thing that would make them sustainable, so that we wouldn't have to keep dropping off bags of wheat. And so one of the principles that Justine Peterson is also now moving into is that the businesses that we are working with, like this small business cohort that we have, is that we're looking at them making investments of knowledge and time and relationship, and then investing in themselves, even saving money towards them. Stop seeing yourself as the borrower owner only. You can lend to one another. You can put money in, and that other people, investors, match your money, so that they can see that you're not out here looking for a handout. You're investing in yourself, and we want you, as a person that wants to see social change, to invest in someone who thinks just like you. I'm investing in myself with only a small amount. You can come in and match me or do better than me with a large amount, but I'm already thinking like you. And we're trying to bring the business owners up in their thinking, so they already are looking at investing in themselves, first with time, then with credit, but then also with your own money. Put in your money to help one another. And when someone from the outside sees that you're doing that, don't you think that they would see that as a better investment when you already think like them? Even though you have limited resources, but you're taking what you have and you're already putting it in, just like in Poverty, Inc. You can have someone dropping off wheat to you all day long and you'll always need it, or you could be one of the ones who learn how to be a wheat farmer, and later on you're going to be the one in the position of giving.
And I'm just thinking to myself, if I was listening to this on my own in my bedroom at a coffee shop, I would immediately want to do something to help or to jump on board. So what can somebody do if they are just sitting at home in their living room listening to this and they are really moved by it?
Oh, wow. First of all, they can show up. They can look at our newsletter and show up at that small business cohort is happening this Wednesday, actually, at North County.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, that's right. at NCIC at 6 o'clock p.m. on West Florissant in Delwood. And they can show up and meet those business owners themselves and hear from them what they're doing. And that way, you don't have to sit around and listen to me syndicating their stories.
Sure.
Come talk to them. Come see that it's happening for real.
Right.
That these people are sitting in this room wanting their lives to be better, and they're investing in themselves right now for the sake of being a farmer and not needing for you to drop off wheat to them all day long. And so I'd say show up. Because if you want to make an investment and you want to see whether or not it's real, because trust is everything with an investor, show up on Wednesday and see that this is real. Come taste and see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys. Anything else that we maybe didn't touch on or that you wanted to bring up before we close out the episode?
Will did reference this, and that is we're a micro-lender for the Small Business Administration, SBA, which means smaller loans that are made available to both startup businesses, emerging businesses, businesses that are looking to scale up. So, again, programs that spell and offer opportunity.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate both of you taking time out of your day. I got more than I would have imagined out of this conversation, but I know that there's going to be people listening that might have not have ever heard of Justine Peterson, and now are extremely informed for their own personal well-being, but also for the community, their neighbors. And it seems like the common theme, the common denominator is just educate your neighbors.
Yes.
Talk to your neighbors, talk to people in your community, get the word out, but also help one another and pick one another up. Nobody's in anything alone.
That's
you
right.
just need to ask.
That's exactly
for help.
right.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys both, and thank you to those that are tuning into this episode of Business Over Brew, and we will see you next time.